Darkness wrapped around me. Not the peaceful darkness of sleep, but the suffocating darkness of a freshly dug grave. My eyes were closed, but my hearing sharpened in a strange way, as if God wanted me to listen, to understand the raw truth happening right next to my hospital bed. The sound of the heart monitor, beep, 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 echoed rhythmically and coldly. It was the only sound proving that this Robert was still breathing. But then, a voice broke that sterile space, a painfully familiar voice. If we pull the plug on the old man now, how much do we save on the bill? It was Michael, my eldest son, the boy I once carried in my arms, running through the neighborhood, screaming with joy the day he was born. His voice didn't tremble at all. There was no trace of a lump in the throat of a son about to lose his father. He spoke of my life as if he were haggling over a pound of meat at a flea market. Immediately, a female voice responded, harsh and full of calculation. "Don't be an idiot, Michael. First he has to wake up for 5 minutes to sign for access to the damn safe. Then he can die if he wants." Linda, my youngest daughter, the little princess I spoiled as if she were made of glass, the girl who never had to wash a dish, who never had to walk under the scorching sun. My heart squeezed, a stabbing pain that didn't come from my weakened chest, but from my own guts. My God, I'm lying here, on the border between life and death, and my 2 children, of my own blood, the ones who carry my last name, are discussing my death as if it were an optimal financial solution. I wanted to open my eyes. I wanted it to jump up, slap each of them until their eyes rolled back and scream at them. I'm not dead. I'm hearing everything. But I couldn't. My body weighed tons because of the sedatives. Although my mind was more awake than ever, I had to endure. I had to stay still, because this cruel play was just beginning. "But look at him," continued Michael, with a voice full of boredom, "with all those cables and machines. The doctor said stage 4 heart failure. Even if they save him, he will only live a few months more. All drugged up, expenses on medicines, expenses on nurses. Do you plan to take out of your pocket to support him?" "Out of my pocket what? His fortune is enough to support the whole city," Linda hissed, while the sound of her heels hit the floor. Click, click, impatiently. "The problem is that he hasn't passed the restaurant chain to our name. Attorney Thompson said that if he dies without a clear will, Matthew also gets a part. Do you want to share the money with that bastard?" "Don't even mention it. It makes me sick," Michael spat. My tears welled up, hot, rolling down my temples until they soaked the pillow. Luckily, in the dim light of the intensive care unit, they didn't see them. Or maybe they did see them, but they didn't care. I clenched my hands under the thin sheet, blood boiling. All my life, Robert Miller, fought against poverty, against ruthless competitors to build the empire. Robert's famous grill. I never knelt before anyone. But today, I have been brought down by my own creations. Before we continue, subscribe to William's Revenge Stories channel and tell us where you are listening from in the comments below. The door of the room opened with the slight hiss of pneumatic hinges. A gust of cold air entered, bringing with it the strong smell of antiseptic. It was Dr. Davis, not only my treating physician, but my old friend and confidant for 30 years. I felt his steps approaching the bed. He made the movement of checking my eyelids, and in that brief instant, I saw his discreet wink. The plan had been activated. The situation is very grave. Dr. Davis's voice lowered in tone, serious and urgent. He turned towards my 2 children. "Mr. Robert needs surgery to replace the heart valve immediately. If we don't operate in the next 4 hours, his heart will stop beating forever." I heard Michael let out a snort, not of concern, but it sounded like the sigh of someone who has just been assigned more household chores. "Well, operate on him. Why are you telling us?" "The old man has VIP insurance," said Michael with indifference. "That is the problem." Davis glanced at the medical file. The sound of paper rustled firmly. "The insurance company refuses to pay due to some exclusion clauses, related to undeclared pre-existing conditions. Besides, Mr. Roberts' bank accounts were frozen this morning by the IRS for an investigation. "What?" shouted the two voices in unison. This time there was real emotion, panic over money. "You mean the old man right now doesn't have a single cent?" asked Linda, with her voice rising to a shrill pitch. "That is exactly how it is," replied Dr. Davis calmly, like a great actor. "The cost of the surgery is $50,000. The hospital requires cash or card right now to prepare the operating room. Rules are rules." A silence wrapped the room, a deadly silence. I held my breath, waiting. "This is the final test. Please, children, say that you will take care of it. Say that money doesn't matter more than Dad's life." Michael cleared his throat. The sound of his suit fabric rubbing was heard when he crossed his arms. $50,000? Are you joking, Doctor? The old man is filthy rich. He has millions of dollars in assets. And now you want the children to take out of their pocket to save him? Besides, who ensures he will live after the operation? The success rate is 50-50, replied the doctor coldly. There it is. See? Linda jumped, shaking her expensive designer bag. Spend $50,000 for a 50% chance? That is a losing investment. Besides, I'm short on cash. I just put all my liquid money into that luxury glamping project in Aspen. I don't have it. Me neither. Michael went along with the flow immediately. My money is all in Bitcoin. If I withdraw now, I lose my shirt. No way. Nobody sells at a loss to pay hospital bills. Lying in bed, my right hand unconsciously sought under the pillow. There was a cold and hard object there, a kitchen knife with an old wooden handle. It wasn't a weapon to attack anyone. It was the first knife I used when I opened my street food stand 40 years ago. The wooden handle was worn, with the imprint of my hand marked on it. The blade had been sharpened so many times it was tiny. I had snuck it into the hospital, hidden under the pillow like an amulet. It reminded me of my origin, my sweat and my tears. I squeezed the knife handle in my hand, feeling every splinter of the wood scratch my skin. It hurt, but that pain helped me stay lucid before the cruelty of my two biological children. They don't lack money. Michael just showed off his new sports car last week. Linda travels to Europe twice a month. They have money. Only they don't have a single dollar for me in my fake stupor. Memories invaded me like a movie in slow motion. I remembered the days of misery in the slums. I remembered the penetrating smell of onions impregnated in my hair, in my clothes that never seemed to get clean. I remembered the sleepless nights cutting meat, boiling bones with cracked hands, bleeding from the cuticles from being in the water so much, calloused hands. That was my medal of honor. My wife, Emily, that tireless woman who died young from overwork. Before closing her eyes, she took my hand and entrusted me. Robert, make sure the children lack nothing, that they don't suffer like us. And I kept that promise blindly. I put Michael in international schools, driving luxury cars to go to class. I dressed Linda in silk, with brand-name shoes since she learned to walk. I forbade them to approach the kitchen because I feared they would get dirty, that they would smell bad. I used money to pave the road for them, but unintentionally. I used money to blindfold their conscience. I created parasitic monsters, beings that only know how to enjoy upon the bones and blood of their father. Suddenly I remembered the conversation with Attorney Thompson 3 years ago, in my own office. That day Thompson adjusted his glasses and looked at me with concern. Robert, are you sure? This clause number 13 is very harsh. Permanently disinherit if the children show ingratitude or abandon the parents in moments of danger. At that moment, I laughed and patted my old friend on the shoulder. Oh, don't worry so much, man. My kids are lazy, but they love me a lot. This clause is just to scare them. Blood is blood. They would never abandon me. Damn. My naivety back then has become the knife that now cuts my heart. It turns out Thompson was right. He saw their true nature a long time ago. while I was blinded by a father's love. Well enough. Michael's voice cut my memories. They were speaking between themselves, whispering, but loud enough for me to hear. Did you find the key? I already checked all the pockets of his pants and jacket, and nothing. Not yet, grumbled Linda. What if the old man hid it in his socks? Lift his leg to see. I felt Michael's freezing hand go under the sheet, touching my ankle. He wasn't checking if my feet were cold or swollen. He was just looking for the safe key. It's not there. Damn it, cursed Michael. Surely he gave it to the lawyer. Cunning old man. I stayed still, with my hand still clutching the wooden knife under the pillow. Yes, Dad is old, but he is not senile, my children. Suddenly, a loud noise came from the hallway, running steps, heavy, urgent, drowning out the sound of the machines in the room. The door of the VIP room burst open violently. A different current of air entered. It wasn't Linda's expensive Chanel perfume, nor Michael's Tom Ford cologne. It was the smell of motor oil, the smell of iron, the smell of work sweat. Dad, Matthew. He entered the room like a hurricane. I opened my eyes just a slit to see. The boy was wearing his blue work overalls, stained with thick black grease. He had a smudged face, messy hair. Sweat ran down his cheeks in streams. He probably ran straight from the auto shop as soon as he got the message from Dr. Davis. Michael stepped back 3 paces, covering his nose, with a grimace as if he had just seen a pile of trash with legs. Gross. Get away from me? Do you plan to dirty my Italian suit? Shouted Michael with a voice full of contempt. I stained my designer clothes just by getting close to you. Fourth-rate mechanic. Linda stuck herself to the corner of the wall, covering her mouth with a handkerchief. Where is security? Why do they let this beggar enter the VIP room? The air here is sterile. Did you bring all your nest of bacteria? Matthew didn't even look at his siblings. He threw himself straight to the side of the bed and fell on his knees. His 2 black hands, cracked and with grease embedded in the nails, took my left hand, the one that didn't have the catheter. He pressed his face to my hand. His shoulders shook violently. Dad! Forgive me for arriving late. I was under a car when I got the news. Dad! He cried. His hot tears fell on my hand, mixing with the oil stains. Michael approached and with the tip of his shiny leather shoe slightly kicked Matthew's leg. Hey, stop acting. The old man is in a coma. He doesn't hear you whine. And what did you come for? To ask for money? I warn you. The old man's accounts are blocked, and we are not going to give you a single dollar. Matthew raised his head slowly. His eyes were bloodshot, but his gaze burned like fire. He stood up, taller and firmer than Michael, although the clothes he wore were 100 times cheaper. He raised his black hands in front of Michael's face, with a deep voice that resonated throughout the room. With these hands full of grease, I hold my dad, because you 2 let him go a long time ago. That phrase was like a colossal slap. Michael stood stunned for a second, with a red face from anger but without finding words to respond. I lay there, with my heart beating strong in my chest. That is right, son. That is the temper of a true man. That is the son of Robert. Matthew turned towards Dr. Davis, without hesitating. Doctor, what does my dad have? What is needed to save him? He needs urgent surgery, Matthew, said Davis, softening his voice notably compared to when he spoke with the other 2. But the cost is very high, $50,000. It must be paid now. Matthew stood paralyzed. $50,000 for a mechanic. That was a life's fortune. I knew that in his savings account for the wedding, he only had about $20,000 that he had gathered during the last 5 years. Michael let out a mocking and twisted little laugh. See? You heard the figure and peed your pants, right? Better go fix bicycles. We handle family matters. You handle them? Growled Matthew. You handle them by disconnecting the respirator? I heard everything from outside. Linda raised her chin. So what? That is the humanitarian solution. We are realists. You only have pure mouth. Dr. Davis looked at his watch, increasing the pressure. There isn't much time left. Mr. Roberts' heart rate is weakening. I need a decision right now. Who will sign the liability waiver and make the payment? If not, I will have to discharge the patient. The tension in the room was about to explode. I felt the tug of war. On one side, my life. On the other, the greed of my children. Michael took a step forward, adjusting his silk tie. He took a deep breath and dictated the final sentence. The death penalty for his father. Dr. Davis, I am the eldest son. I have the power of decision, said Michael with an icy voice. We reject the surgery. $50,000 is too risky for someone of 68 years. Keep him on painkillers when he goes. Notify us? Exactly, added Linda, with her eyes glued to her phone screen. She seemed to be sending messages to cancel her appointment at the spa. Let's not force things. Let him go peacefully to see Mom. Extending his life will only make him suffer more. You, stammered Matthew without believing what he heard. You are demons, not people. Dad raised you with everything, gave you mansions and cars, and now the money hurts you to save his life. What do you know? Shouted Michael. Money doesn't grow on trees. We are short on capital. If you are such a good son, you pay it. Ah, I forgot. Where is a starving wretch like you going to get money? Or do you plan to sell a kidney? Do you think I wouldn't dare? Shouted Matthew, with the veins in his neck standing out. The cruelty of Michael and Linda had touched the bottom of moral degradation. Not only did they refuse to save me, but they mocked Matthew's helplessness. They despised my life and the dignity of their younger brother. I lay there, with blood boiling, but at the same time I felt a liberation. The last thread of affection that tied me to my two biological children had just been cut by their own hands. There were no more regrets. There was no more pity. Now it was just a war. And I, Robert Miller, have never lost a war for which I have prepared well. All right, said Matthew suddenly. With unusual determination, he turned to Dr. Davis. Doctor, please keep my dad alive. Give me 1 hour, I swear. I will bring the money. 1 hour? The doctor frowned. Are you going to rob a bank? No. Matthew wiped his tears. His eyes shone with iron determination. I have a way. Please, doctor, do not disconnect the respirator. I beg you. He clasped his hands, begging the doctor, and then turned around and ran out of the room, leaving behind the mocking laughter of his siblings. I wanted to scream, Run, son, don't disappoint Dad. But I remained motionless, squeezing the wooden knife. The handle of the knife was hot in the palm of my hand, as if transmitting strength to wait for the outcome that was approaching. Matthew's silhouette disappeared behind the automatic door. The sound of his heavy steps faded until dying out, leaving the VIP room submerged in a suffocating silence. No, not exactly silence. It was an atmosphere thick with contempt and calculation. I was there, my chest rising and falling to the mechanical rhythm of the respirator. But my mind was running after my youngest son. What do you plan to do, Matthew? 1 hour? Are you going to ask for a loan from loan sharks? Or are you going to steal? Don't do anything crazy, son. Michael broke the silence with a mocking laugh, dry like the snap of a broken branch. He turned to Linda with a mocking face. Can you believe it? Give me 1 hour. Who does he think he is? Superman? Or does he think $50,000 or $50 for candy? Linda let herself fall onto the leather sofa, crossing her endless legs, and with total naturalness took out her powder case to touch up makeup that was already perfect. What does it matter? Surely he ran outside to make more drama. A guy as poor as him. Who even thinks twice about an oil change? Where is he going to get $50,000 in cash? Hey, doctor, Michael addressed Davis, changing his tone 180 degrees, from mockery to arrogance, while we wait for that crazy guy to return, which I bet he ran away. Let's talk seriously. If my dad, well, goes away, how will the process of reading the will be? Do you have any copy? Dr. Davis stood with crossed arms, with a frozen gaze observing my two children through his gold-rimmed glasses. He was the witness of everything, the silent judge in this court of conscience. I am a doctor, not a lawyer. Young Michael, my mission is to save lives, not distribute assets. And while Mr. Roberts' heart continues beating, I have hope. Hope of what? Murmured Michael, walking from one side to another with impatience. It is just spending for the sake of spending. Money thrown in the trash. I heard every word, every syllable like needles sticking into my brain. Damn, my son doesn't worry that I die. He worries that I die without following protocol, that I die before signing the papers. He sees my life as a financial burden, an uncollectible debt that must be liquidated quickly. In my mind appeared the image of Matthew, the boy stained with grease, treated like trash by his siblings, but being the only one who dared to scream, demanding to save me. That contrast was so bitter that I felt like vomiting. On one side, silks and luxuries, but with a black soul. On the other, oil stains, but with a shining soul. Hey, said Linda suddenly, with illuminated eyes looking at her phone. What if we order food? I'm very hungry. This drama lowered my sugar. There is a luxury sushi place nearby that delivers to the bed. Good idea, nodded Michael. Order me an order of bluefin tuna sashimi, the most expensive one. Anyway, later when we get the old man's card, we pay with that. They were planning what to eat right next to their father's bed, dying without any respect, without any mercy. I closed my eyes tightly, swallowing my tears. Eat, children, eat until you are full, because this could be the last supper of the life of kings that you are enjoying. Time passed, every minute heavier. 30 minutes had passed since Matthew left. Michael and Linda's patience seemed to have run out. That guy is not coming back. Michael looked at his watch and clicked his tongue. He fled. Surely he got scared and ran away. Well, forget it. Linda got up and approached my bed. Brother, the doctor went out for a moment. What if? We looked carefully again. I have the suspicion that the old man hides the safe key in his clothes. He is so distrustful that he doesn't even sleep. Good idea. Michael smiled with malice. Last check. If we find the key or some code, we leave. Let the hospital take care of the old man. And then I felt the grossest violation of my life. Linda's hand, with her long nails of elaborate manicure, went into the collar of my shirt, touching in search of a chain. She violently ripped the buttons of my pajamas, turning me over as if inspecting defective merchandise. No chain. Only this cheap red cord. Linda pouted. She ripped the red thread I wore on my neck, a lucky charm that Matthew's mom asked for me at church last year, and threw it on the floor as if it were trash. Further down, Michael started rummaging in the pockets of my pants. He squeezed every fold of the fabric, lifting the sheets. His hands were freezing, without a shred of family warmth. Damn it. What is this hard thing under the pillow? Exclaimed Michael suddenly when his hand touched under my head. My heart stopped for an instant. The knife. He had touched my old kitchen knife. If he takes it out, he will see my madness. Or worse, he will use it to cut the last trace of respect. But, luckily, he only touched the wooden handle. What the hell is this? A piece of wood? Michael made a face, about to take it out. Just at that moment, the heart monitor alarm sounded. Beep, 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 non-stop. I had held my breath on purpose, tensing my body to alter my heart rate, a little trick I learned in my meditation days. The old man is having an attack. Michael jumped from fright, withdrawing his hand as if he had been burned. Shit. Don't die now. I haven't found the key. Call the doctor. Call the doctor, quick, shouted Linda, but she backed away, moving from the bed, fearful that death would stick to her. Dr. Davis entered running. He looked at the monitor and then looked at me. I relaxed my body so the heart rate returned to normal. Although still weak, he understood the signal immediately. Family members out. Don't touch the patient. You are altering him," shouted Davis, pushing Michael away. Michael panted, touching his chest. We were just adjusting his pillow." "Liars!" I shouted inside. "You weren't adjusting the pillow. You were digging my grave." In that moment I realized a painful truth down to the bones. While a son, adoptive, ran against death, selling his own life to save me, my 2 blood children took advantage of my weakest moment to strip me of the little I had left. This betrayal was no longer a suspicion. It was irrefutable proof. It was the death sentence for paternal love, which I had tried to sustain for so many years. Exactly at minute 58, the door of the room opened wide once more. This time, Matthew didn't enter running. He entered walking, but with stumbling steps like a drunk. His breathing whistled heavily, as if his lungs were about to burst. Everyone in the room turned to look. Michael had a piece of tuna sushi in his hand and stayed with his mouth open. Linda choked on her half-drunk orange juice. Matthew approached Dr. Davis's desk. He said nothing. He simply dropped an old canvas bag on the table, the one he used to keep his wrenches. The sound of metal hitting the table made a clop, but what was inside wasn't iron. He opened the bag with trembling hands. Bundles of old bills, wrinkled, stained with oil and smelling of gasoline. There were bills of 50, of 20, even handfuls of $10 bills tied with rubber bands. "Count," said Matthew, with a hoarse voice and dry throat. 20,000. The money from savings for my wedding. I took it all out. Michael let out a laugh, an acid laugh. 20,000? Is this a joke? The doctor said 50,000, right? Do you plan to pay for Dad's life in installments? Matthew didn't even look at Michael. He put his hand in his shirt pocket, near his heart, and took out a letter-sized paper folded in 4, with worn edges. He smoothed the paper on the table. Next to the pile of money, it was a sales contract. The ink of the signature was still fresh. And this. Matthew swallowed saliva. His eyes were red, but he didn't cry. 30,000 more. I just sold the shop, total sale, with tools, with the premises, even my motorcycle. That guy Pete next door. He'd punished me on the price, but I needed the money now. He gave me the cash on the spot. The whole room fell silent. Even the air conditioning seemed to stop working. Dr. Davis took the paper. His hands also trembled a little. He looked at Matthew with amazement and pain. "Matthew, that shop was your life. You built it up for 10 years from scratch. Now you sell it. What are you going to live on?" Matthew turned to look at me. He passed his calloused hand, still with ink from the contract, softly over my forehead. "The shop is lost, and I can build it again. I still have these hands. But if Dad is lost, I can't recover him. He was the one who picked me up from the trash, gave me a name, made me a person. This shop is nothing compared to my dad's life." He said it lightly, but I knew his heart was bleeding. Matthew's shop was his only pride, the place where he proved to the world he wasn't a useless bastard. He had sold his dignity, sold his future, sold his dream of getting married, just to buy a 50% chance of life for me. Linda made a face of disgust, throwing the half-eaten sushi on the plate. How stupid, selling the fishing rod to buy a dead fish. You really have no head for business. No wonder all your life you will only be a mechanic. Linda shook her head with disdain. Well, if he likes to play the straw hero, let him be. If the money is there, operate on him, doctor. Don't bother us any more. I lay there, with tears running inwards, salty. Matthew's sacrifice was too big, too magnificent. It completely eclipsed the fake shine of those two. Son, you didn't sell your future. You just bought the whole world. Very well. The money is complete. We will proceed with the surgery immediately, declared Dr. Davis with a firm voice, signaling the nurses to bring the stretcher. 2 robust nurses entered, disconnected the monitor cables, and changed them to portable equipment. My bed started rolling. Matthew held my hand tight, running next to the stretcher to the door. Strength. "Dad, you promised to wait until I got married. You can't break your promise." He ran after me until the red line that separated the sterile area, where a nurse stopped him. He stayed there standing, looking at me, with hands joined in front of his chest, praying, with a solitary and strangely small figure, and Michael and Linda remained sitting calm on the sofa. Michael wiped his mouth with a napkin, and Linda was putting on her shoes, when the stretcher passed in front of them. Michael shouted at the doctor, with a tone as if giving instructions to the maid. "Hey, doctor, operate what you have to operate, but don't call us while we dine. We are going to the steakhouse. Waiting here with this smell of antiseptic takes away my appetite," Linda added, with a cutting voice. By the way, remember to keep the invoice. Later. If something happens to the old man, the money Matthew put counts as a debt of the old man to him. We will see if we deduct it from his part of the inheritance, if he gets anything. We have to be fair. Go to hell, murmured Dr. Davis between his teeth, but loud enough for me to hear. He accelerated the pace of the stretcher, as if wanting to help me escape the contaminated air created by my children. The door of the operating room closed with a bang. Boom! Behind us, the hallway light disappeared. Only the white and blinding light of the operating room remained. The collapse. The collapse had been completed. Not the collapse of my health, but the collapse of the illusion of a happy family. The velvet curtain had fallen, revealing the monsters behind the stage. My two biological children, my own blood, had abandoned their father at death's door to go to dinner. They were celebrating over my announced death. Inside the operating room, the air was freezing. The machines hummed softly. The nurses surrounded me, blocking the view from the small window of the door, just in case the other two returned to spy. "Are they gone?" I asked, with a clear voice, without a trace of the weakness of a heart patient. Dr. Davis took off his mask, letting out a long sigh. "They are gone. They even checked in on Facebook at the steakhouse." I sat up. No scalpels. No anesthesia. I myself ripped off the bunch of cables stuck to my chest. Every pull was a pain on the skin, but it helped me forget the pain in the heart. "Thompson, come out now," I shouted towards the scrub area. The gray door opened. Attorney Thompson came out, with an iPad in his hand and a thick folder. He had been hidden there for 2 hours, witnessing and recording everything through the system of hidden cameras and microphones. Thompson's face, the man of steel of law in the city, now showed shock. "Robert, I've been in this for 40 years. I've seen so many disputes over inheritances, but I had never seen a scene as cruel as today. Your children are not human." I got off the bed. My bare feet touched the freezing tile floor. I walked towards Thompson and looked at the iPad screen. The video showed Michael touching, looking for the key, Linda throwing my red thread on the floor, and Matthew placing, trembling, the paper of the shop sale on the table. Everything looked sharp. "Did you record everything?" I asked. "Every second, both the words and the actions. Enough to constitute the crime of abandonment of a family member in danger and attempted misappropriation. It is solid evidence." I nodded, taking the folder. My hand closed tightly. My gaze was no longer that of an old and weak father. It was the gaze of the Shark, my nickname in the business world in my old days. "Good. Activate Clause 13 immediately." "Are you sure, Robert?" "Once activated, there is no turning back. Those two will lose everything. They will go to the street in the literal sense." I smiled, a smile that didn't reach my eyes. "Thompson, see it yourself. They threw me to the street a long time ago. They sold me while I was alive. So, why should I leave them the knife so they stab me one more time?" I turned towards Dr. Davis. "And Matthew? Where is he?" "He is sitting, collapsed in the hallway waiting. He doesn't dare go anywhere. Don't tell him anything yet. Let this play reach its finale. Tomorrow morning, when the sun rises, I will show those two exemplary children what a real inheritance is." I took the kitchen knife with wooden handle that I had brought with me until here. The blade shone under the light of the surgical lamp. Tomorrow I will use this knife, not to cut meat, but to cut the cursed bond that ties my life to those two ungrateful children, and I will also use it to hand over the scepter to the one who deserves it. The fake surgery has ended, but the great surgery of my life just really begins. Sunrise in the city always has a strange color, a mixture between the gray of urban smog and the bright gold of the morning sun. The sun rays pierce the curtains of the VIP room, illuminating the black leather armchair where I was sitting. I had changed the patient pajamas for a suit that Thompson brought me. I was sitting there, with my back to the door, with a glass of apple juice in my hand, but with the bearing of someone holding a glass of premium Cabernet to celebrate a victory, or rather, to celebrate an ending. The clock struck 8 in the morning, just the visiting hour that Dr. Davis had scheduled. The door opened. I heard familiar steps, but this time there was something different. Linda's clicking heels no longer marked a proud rhythm, but it was slow, feigning heaviness. "Dr. Davis," resounded Michael's voice, lowering a tone, trying to sound afflicted. "My dad? Is it done? I mean, is he gone? Dad surely suffered a lot last night. We couldn't sleep at all. We spent it praying. Liars." I drank a sip of apple juice. The sweet and tart taste spread in my mouth. They didn't sleep because they were busy eating steaks and calculating how much money I was going to leave them. Dr. Davis, who was standing in front of me and facing the door, adjusted his glasses. "Did you arrive so early? Are you already mentally prepared?" "Yes," replied Michael quickly, sounding like a student reciting the lesson. "We already contacted the funeral home. They have a very fast and efficient cremation package. You just need to sign the death certificate, and they come to pick up. I mean, to take the body immediately." "That is right," added Linda. "We already came dressed in black. We have to handle Dad's funeral in the most attentive way possible." I looked sideways at the blurred reflection on the turned-off television screen in front of me. The two came dressed in total black from head to toe. Linda even wore huge sunglasses that covered half her face, surely to hide her eyes that weren't swollen from crying. How attentive. So attentive that they wanted to take me out of this world as quickly as possible. It was time to lower the curtain. I slowly turned the armchair. The sound of the axis turning made a squeak, and, in the silence of the space, sounding like the lid of a coffin opening, when my face was face to face with my two children, time seemed to stop. Michael held a handkerchief to his eyes, dry, with the other hand in his pants pocket. Linda had her head down, feigning sobbing. Both looked up at the same time, their eyes opened wide. Michael's jaw dropped. The handkerchief fell to the floor. Plop! Linda let out a heartbreaking scream, backing away and tripping over the leg of the sofa, almost falling. Ghost," howled Linda. I stayed seated, with legs crossed, looking at them with the greatest calm possible. I raised my glass of juice, smiling, a smile I knew would haunt them for the rest of their lives. "What happened, kids? Were you already burying me so fast?" My voice resonated, deep and full of authority, without any sign of someone who just went through life or death heart surgery. Michael turned pale as a sheet, stammering, pointing at me with a trembling finger. "Dad, Dad." "Are you not dead?" "But," the doctor said. "The doctor said you needed surgery. Did he say I died?" I interrupted him, slamming the glass against the table with a clack. "What? Very disappointed? The express cremation plan was ruined for you?" "No, it isn't that." Linda took off her sunglasses hurriedly, revealing a heavily made-up face, but pale from fright. We were just being cautious. Blessed be God. You're alive. You gave us a death scare." She made the move to throw herself to hug me to continue her theater of devoted daughter, but I raised my hand, indicating her to stop, a sharp gesture, like shooing away an annoying fly. "Stay there. Don't come near me. Your perfume stinks of falsehood. I am allergic." The air in the room was now colder than in the morgue. My two children stood stunned, not knowing what to do with their hands. They were trying to process the information. trying to search for a new script to cover up the funeral rush from a moment ago. Michael, with his scammer instinct, recovered faster. He forced a smile and took a step forward. Dad, always with your jokes. When we heard you were grave, we worried so much we lost sleep and appetite. As the doctor said, 50-50. We just prepared for the worst scenario. It is being realistic, Dad. Realistic? I let out a laugh, a dry and harsh laugh. The realistic thing is that you went to eat at the steakhouse while I was in the operating room. Right? Michael froze. He looked sideways at Dr. Davis. Davis just shrugged. Arms crossed and leaning on the wall like a loyal bodyguard. And the realistic thing is, I continued, hardening my voice, that you discussed disconnecting my respirator to save hospital expenses. You wanted me to wake up 5 minutes just to sign the damn paper to open the safe. And afterwards, if I lived or died, you didn't give a damn. Is it true or not? Linda paled. Her lips trembled. Dad, did you hear everything? Dad. But if you were in a coma, I'm old, my heart is weak. But I am not deaf, I roared, hitting the arm of the chair. I heard every word, every vile calculation you made. I bent down, picked up the folder that Attorney Thompson had left on the table, and threw it in front of them. The photos captured by the security cameras scattered on the floor. Photos of Michael checking my pockets. Photos of Linda checking my shirt collar. Photos of them laughing, leaving the room. Look well. I pointed at the photos. Is this how children treat their father when he is on the brink of death? Rummaging like vultures pecking at a corpse. Michael looked at the photos, and drops of cold sweat began to sprout on his forehead. He knew he could no longer deny it. The mask of pity had broken completely. He changed tactics, from denial to offensive, the nature of those who are cornered. It is okay. And so what if you heard, shouted Michael with a red face. Do you know the pressure we have? You lying there? The money frozen? How are we going to live? We also need money to maintain our lifestyle. $50,000 for an old man of 68 years is a waste. It is economic thinking. Economic thinking? I smiled with contempt. Then let me tell you about my economy. I stood up. Although the suit was big on me due to weight loss, my shadow on the wall remained huge, wrapping my 2 ungrateful children. Do you think I know nothing? Do you think because I am old, I am senile, and only good for watching TV at home? I walked slowly towards the window and opened the curtains. The light flooded the room, illuminating every speck of dust floating in the air, and also illuminating the fear in my children's eyes. Michael, I called him by his name, with a soft voice but sharp as a razor. Last month you said you needed $2 million to invest in the expansion of your ad agency, I suspected, and put a private eye to investigate, Michael started. Dad, you investigated me. I know you owe the cartel $3 million for soccer bets and losses in crypto. They threatened to cut your tendons if you don't pay before tomorrow. Right? Michael collapsed. His legs turned to jelly. He clung to the edge of the table, not to fall face down. His darkest secret had been exposed. Dad, I swear I'm going to recover. And you, Linda. I turned towards my youngest daughter. Did you say you invested in land in Aspen? Lie. You burned all the money on Hermes bags and trips paying everything for young boys. Your credit cards are overdrawn for 3 months. The bank is about to seize your condo. Linda broke down crying. This time for real. She cried from fear. Dad, help me. The bank said they are going to seal my house next week. I don't want to live on the street. So that was it? I nodded, applauding slowly. Clap, clap, clap. It turns out you didn't want me to die just for greed, but because you are drowning. You needed my safe like a life preserver. I approached them, looking straight into their eyes to each one. Did you really believe my accounts were frozen? The two looked at each other confused. That was just a test of $50,000. My accounts are still active and working. There's enough money there to buy 10 of your lives together. But, I paused, letting the silence eat their insides. I prefer to use that money for charity, to feed stray dogs, before giving it to those who want to kill me to pay gambling debts. Michael revealed himself, desperate. Dad, you can't do that. You have a lot of money. Save me just this time. I am your biological son. I am blood of your blood. Blood of my blood? I made a grimace. My blood is not that cowardly. Just at that moment, the door of the room opened slightly. Attorney Thompson entered, followed by Matthew. Matthew was still wearing the same dirty overalls from yesterday, but he had washed his face. He had swollen eyes and a lost expression. He still didn't know what was happening. He only thought I had passed away, or something serious had happened. Seeing me standing there, firm in the middle of the room, Matthew stopped dead. He rubbed his eyes, disbelieving what he saw. Dad? Dad? Can you walk now? I smiled. A genuine smile, warm and kind. A smile I hadn't dedicated to anyone in years. Come here, son. Matthew ran and hugged me tightly. He cried with hiccups like a small child. He didn't ask for the money. He didn't ask for the will. He only touched my shoulders, my hands. Are you alive? The doctor said, you are okay. Thank God, I thought. I patted him on the back, feeling the familiar smell of motor oil, the smell of honest work. I am fine, all thanks to you. I released Matthew and turned to look at Michael and Linda, who were standing like stone statues in the corner. Envy and hate burned in their eyes. Thompson. Red, I ordered. Attorney Thompson opened his briefcase and took out a document with red seals. He declared with a powerful voice, according to the last will drafted this morning and pursuant to the asset transfer contract with immediate effect, Mr. Robert Miller decides to transfer 100% of the shares of the restaurant chain Robert's Famous Grill, along with the ownership of the mansion in the hills, and all the balance in personal bank accounts to the sole beneficiary, Mr. Matthew Miller. It was like lightning striking dry ground. Michael shouted, What? Are you crazy? He is adopted. He is picked up from the trash. Why does he keep everything and us nothing? Matthew also got scared, waving his hands. No, Dad, I don't need it. I just want you to live. Besides, I already sold the shop. I will work as an employee to support you. I don't know how to manage restaurants. I looked at Matthew firmly. Matthew, listen to me well. You didn't lose the shop. I already recovered it for you. I paid double so that guy Pete doesn't dare say, not a peep, ever again. Matthew's eyes opened wide. But, I continued, with a warm voice, not only do you recover the shop, you have proven that you are the only one worthy of inheriting my legacy. I put my hand under the pillow of the empty bed and took out the object I had hidden, well from the beginning, the old kitchen knife with wooden handle. I held the knife with both hands, with reverence, as if holding a sacred sword, and I handed it to Matthew. Take it. This is the knife I used to cut the first onions, to cut the first pieces of meat when I started. It is cheap, it is old, but it is sharp and loyal, just like you. Matthew received the knife trembling. His calloused hand squeezed the worn handle tightly. He understood the meaning of this object. It wasn't a material good. It was a responsibility. It was the soul of the flavor. Use it to cook delicious dishes for the world. Never use it to stab your family in the back, as your siblings did to me. My sentence was like a bucket of boiling water thrown directly into Michael and Linda's face. Matthew, you didn't lose your shop. You won it multiplied by 1,000. The silence broke with a roar of madness. Michael couldn't take it anymore. The shock of losing an immense fortune, added to the pressure of debts and jealousy accumulated for years, turned him into a beast. Damn bastard. Michael lunged at Matthew. He was no longer the elegant creative director. He was a madman. He grabbed Matthew by the shirt collar and punched his younger brother hard in the face. You tricked my dad. You gave him some potion to stupefy him. Give me back my money. I'm going to kill you. Matthew was taken by surprise. He staggered back, but kept the knife gripped tightly, pointing at the floor not to hurt anyone. He didn't return the blow. He only raised his hands to block. Michael, calm down. Calm down, my ass. I lost everything. Because of you. Because of you. Michael howled, grabbing the glass vase from the table with the intention of smashing it on Matthew's head. Stop, I shouted, trying to launch myself to stop him. But my health still didn't allow it, but I didn't need to intervene. The room door burst open. 2 huge security guards, whom Thompson had already placed outside, burst in. They took Michael down against the cold floor with professionalism. The vase fell to the floor, shattering. Crash! The pieces of glass flew, just like the pieces of this broken family. Michael was with his face smashed against the floor, still shouting curses. Let me go! I am his son. I have rights. Senile old man. You will regret it. Matthew is going to kick you to the street. Linda was stuck to the corner, trembling, pale as a ghost, looking at her crazed brother, and then at me and Matthew, 2 men standing, firm next to each other. She understood the war was over, and the blood side had lost miserably against the side of strangers. I walked towards Michael, looking down at my biological son crushed on the floor. In my gaze there was no longer anger, only infinite pity. Michael, I said with an icy voice, you are right about one thing. You are my son, but only on biological paper, because in my heart, you died the moment you asked how much it cost to disconnect me. I addressed the guards. Hold him well. Don't let him escape. The police are on the way. The police? Exclaimed Linda, with a broken voice. Why the police? Dad, dirty laundry is washed at home. I looked at Linda, shaking my head, with disappointment. Dirty laundry? No, daughter. This is no longer a family matter. It is a legal matter. Thompson took a step forward, adjusted his tie, and showed a subpoena he had just received by fax. Miss Linda, young Michael, this morning, you 2 forged Mr. Roberts' signature to withdraw $50,000 from company funds. The bank cameras and the teller have confirmed. This is embezzlement and forgery of documents. Linda collapsed, fainting. Michael stopped screaming. He stayed still on the floor, with wide and empty eyes. He knew the prison doors were opening to receive him, instead of the bank vault doors he dreamed of. I stayed there, in the middle of emotional chaos, hurt, but relieved. I myself had removed the malignant tumor that was eating my life, even if that tumor bore the name, biological son. The atmosphere in the room became dense. Only Michael's panting, immobilized on the floor, and Linda's choked sobs were heard. The gates of hell that they themselves opened now awaited them, not with red fire, but with cold bars. I signaled the guards to loosen the grip a little so Michael could lift his head. His face of a spoiled pretty boy was now deformed, red and full of grime from the floor. His eyes no longer looked at me with arrogance, but with absolute terror. Dad, whispered Michael with a broken voice, are you really going to put your son in jail? I am your son, Dad. How do you have the heart to? I looked at him with a split soul. But my reason cold as ice. I don't put you in jail, Michael. Your own greed did that. Attorney Thompson approached, holding the evidence document as if it were a death sentence. He squatted in front of Michael, with a professional but hard tone. Young Michael, Miss Linda, did you believe forging a signature to take out $50,000 this morning was a smart move? Did you think the bank wouldn't call to confirm with a VIP client like Mr. Robert? Linda trembled. Tears ran down her expensive mascara, creating ugly black furrows on her cheeks. We were just going to borrow it. We were going to return it. Borrow? Thompson smiled sarcastically. In law, there is no concept of borrowing with a forged signature. This is fraud for misappropriation of assets and document forgery, with this amount, added to the aggravating factor of taking advantage of the victim in a coma. The penalty is 5 to 10 years in prison. 5 to 10 years? Shouted Michael, writhing like a fish out of water. No, I am not going to jail. I am going to die. In there. Dad, please. You have money? Drop the charges. I stood looking at my 2 children wallowing in the mud of fear. These were the children I wrapped in silk, whom I never let the sun touch their face or the wind mess their hair. Now they face the rawest reality of life. If you do wrong, you pay the price. I turned my back on them, walking towards the window. I didn't want to see their cowardice anymore. I can drop the charges. I can save you from jail. Michael's eyes shone with hope. Linda joined her hands, pleading as if praying, but with one condition. I turned around, with a gaze as sharp as the knife blade in Matthew's hand. You have 2 options. Listen well, because I will only say it once. The silence was sepulchral. Even Matthew held his breath, waiting. Option 1. I let Thompson call the police to enter right now. You will go to trial, to jail, and you will taste prison food for the next 10 years. My assets remain Matthew's. Linda shook her head, frantically stammering. No, no. The option 2. Dad. What is option 2? Option 2. I took a deep breath. Swallowing the pain, I dropped the charges. You won't step in jail. But you have to sign this document. Thompson took out 2 already drafted sheets. The title was in bold. Clear. Waiver of inheritance rights and cessation of financial relations. Sign here. It means you permanently renounce inheriting anything from me, from the restaurant and the mansion, to a spoon or a fork. And you must leave here immediately empty-handed, without credit cards, without cars, without allowance. Michael looked at the paper, then at me. He was weighing freedom, but in poverty, or jail, but keeping the title of millionaire's son, although without money. Dad, you are pressuring us too much. Michael gritted his teeth. If I sign, what am I going to live on? The cartel guys are going to kill me. That is your problem, I responded coldly. You have hands. You have feet. Matthew has lived with his own hands. Why can't you? Or are you just a parasite that can't live without its host? Sign? I shouted loud, making everyone in the room jump. Or I call the police right now. Decide. Michael's hand trembled, taking the pen. He looked at Matthew, who was there with a face of pain but without intervening. He looked at me, the father who had been his living ATM, and understood that ATM was blocked forever. Scritch, scratch. The sound of the pen tearing the paper was heard strident. Michael signed, a scribbled signature full of hate. Linda also rushed to sign, with tears falling in streams. It is done. Michael threw the pen to the floor. And now what? Can we go now? Not yet. I extended my hand. The keys to the Mercedes. The keys to the condo. The black card additional card. The Rolex watch I gave you on your birthday last year. Return it all. What? This watch was a gift. Michael grabbed his wrist. A gift for my son. But you. Now you are just a stranger I just saved from prison. Take it off. The guards approached. Michael and Linda were forced to take off all the luxury items they were wearing. Watches, diamond rings, car keys. Everything was put on the table, next to Matthew's pile of greasy money. The contrast was bitter. One pile was cold and indifferent diamonds. The other was small money, but warm with affection. Now get out, I pointed to the door. Walk away. And remember, I never see you in any of my restaurants. If not, I will call the police for trespassing. My 2 biological children, now looking as disheveled as plucked chickens, left the room with heads down. Linda no longer had haughty support. She was barefoot because she had forgotten her heels under the sofa during the panic. Michael, with his wrinkled brand suit, head down, did not dare look at anyone, passing by Matthew. Michael stopped a second. He looked up, with eyes full of resentment. Don't sing victory. I will return. I will sue. Go fast. Matthew interrupted him with a strangely calm voice. Before Dad changes his mind. And Michael. At the bus terminal, they are hiring porters. I think you should try. Michael ground his teeth and left stomping with rage. The sound of the closing door made a soft click, but it sounded like a hammer nailing the coffin of this blood relationship. The room remained silent, a clean silence. There was no longer the smell of fake perfume. There were no longer calculations. I let myself fall into the armchair, feeling drained of all strength. This war, although won, left me full of wounds, wounds in the soul that bled. Matthew approached and kneeled at my feet. He still held the kitchen knife with wooden handle in his hand. "Dad, are you okay? Do you regret it?" I put my hand on his head. His hair was stiff from cheap gel and street dust. But for me in that moment, it was softer than any silk. Regret? Of course. I sighed, looking out the window. I regret not having educated them well 20 years ago. I regret having let money rot their human quality. My tears welled up again. This time, I didn't hold them back. I cried for the failure of a father. I cried for the 2 wayward children who had just left my life to enter the weeds. Matthew cried too. He rested his head on my knee. "I am going to take care of you, Dad. I won't let you be sad." I lifted his face, using my thumb to wipe the tear mixed with grease on his cheek. "Don't cry, son. Men only cry when they chop onions. And since you are the future head chef, you have to get used to chopping onions." Father and son looked at each other and smiled, a crooked but warm smile. Outside, the sun was already high, casting bright golden rays into the room, dispelling the darkness of the long night. 1 month later, the restaurant Robert's Famous Grill, the main branch in downtown, shone with its lights. Customers entered and left, the sound of cutlery clashing, laughter. The aroma of the famous brisket filled the space. I was on the 2nd floor, in the management office with glass walls. Looking down, Matthew was in the open kitchen area. He wasn't wearing an owner's suit. He wore his immaculate white chef uniform, with his tall hat. In his hand he had my old wooden handle knife, cutting beef agilely with the expert technique I taught him during the last month. He smiled at the employees. He greeted the customers. His eyes shone with joy. The staff respected him, not because he was my son, but because he was the one who arrived earliest and left latest, the one willing to roll up his sleeves to wash dishes if people were missing. I drank a sip of red wine. This time, it was real wine. Delicious. I approached the large floor-to-ceiling window, looking at the bustling street outside. Across the street, opposite the elegance of my restaurant, there was a sleazy street taco stand, with grease smoke coming out in spurts. And there, I saw a painfully familiar image, a haggard man, with a filthy apron. He was bent over washing a huge pile of dishes in a tub of black water. It was Michael. He no longer had his groomed look. Messy hair. His hands that used to wear Rolex were now red from cheap detergent. He washed while the owner of the stall yelled at him for breaking a plate. Next to him, a girl served plates of hot tacos, sweating in streams that ran the cheap makeup on her face. Linda, a drunk customer, touched her bottom, but she only dared to dodge weakly, without daring to slap him like in the old days. She needed the tip. She needed the job to pay the rent of her miserable room and hide from debts. In the glass of my luxury restaurant, my reflection, an elegant and fulfilled old man, superimposed on the real image of my 2 biological children struggling at the bottom of society. Across the street, a picture of cruel but fair contrast. I didn't feel joy, nor did I feel like saving them. I only felt the calm of the law of cause and effect. Matthew went up to the office and saw me looking out. He also followed my gaze, seeing his siblings suffering. "Dad," Matthew hesitated, "what if we give them a chance, that they return as kitchen helpers? Look at them. They look pitiful." I turned around, looking at Matthew straight in the eyes. My gaze was severe but full of love. "No, Matthew. Don't take away the most valuable lesson of their lives." I pointed towards the glass. "They are studying university, son. The university called life. The tuition is poverty and humiliation. Only when they taste enough of that bitterness will they know how to appreciate the sweetness of money earned honestly. Helping them now is hurting them again." Matthew nodded. Understanding. He squeezed the knife in his hand and returned to the kitchen. I stayed there a moment more, watching Michael drop a plate and how they deducted it from his salary. He looked up towards my restaurant, and his gaze met mine through the glass. In his eyes there was a late regret, the longing for the paradise he himself had set on fire. I closed the curtains, hiding that painful past. I turned around, walking towards the warm light of the kitchen, where my true son was creating dishes that brought happiness to people. I looked at the camera, breaking the fourth wall, saying the last words to the audience with a deep voice, slow, impregnated with the flavor of life and spicy like a habanero pepper. Sometimes, God takes away your blood children, not to punish you, but to leave room for the angels who do deserve it. And as for my 2 children, destiny charged for me the debt I never had the courage to collect, in the end. The price of their blind ambition was losing the rest of their lives. The screen goes dark. Only the sound remains. Tss, tss, cheerful of the meat grilling on the coals.